at the moment. Okay. So I'll give you a quick rundown of the bike we've got, and the reservation. We've got a stand here, and then some of the others are from the Sussex British Motorcycle Club. We've also got a stand here, and we're very interested to talk to you about the bike. And just coming around for me at the moment is a late Bantam. That's going to be probably a 175cc. Not much you can say about the late Bantam, so this is a little big one coming up. And that's sort of like a dive riding. This used to be in the army as a... Well, that's the one. There's a yellow pedal here, Bantam engine, called a tri-band, that one. Think of a home. I sort of try 350 just come in the arena, the black one, up there, right. What year is it from, Mick? 1960. That's 1960. And what cc is it? 650. Right, 650. And that's one of the late ones, isn't it?
Badgering her to sell it to me, and the old boy never would part with it, and then he passed away, and she rang me up one day and said he's died, and would you like the bike? So I went round and here she is.
Well, that's amazing. Why is it that I never find these bikes? Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh no, now this is a nice BSA. Now this would have been made. Would it have been made at the time when they were part of Triumph and?
Yeah. It was 1971 BSA Thunderbolt 650 single carb. The Lightning version was twin carb version. This is right at the end of BSA. 71, 72. These were the last models they brought out, and then they went to the wall. And
no, we don't get that lovely sound, do we? Well, thank you very much. That's great. Right, we'll have a little chat here with this BSA Bantam coming round. Hello there.
Hiya.
This a 150?
175.
Right, so this is a big, a 170.
I don't really know, about 50, 60 I think.
Yeah, pretty much. I think 60 would be top whack for something like this, yeah. Yeah, well, thank you very much. That's a two-stroke engine in that, as you can probably smell as it goes around. Now, nice motorcycle combination here. A very nice sidecar on this one. What make is that?
It's not this, Watsonian. It's a Monza.
All right, so Watsonian Monza car, styled a bit like the old Stide car, sidecar, isn't it, that one? Yeah, no, very nice bike, the Aerial. What model is this?
Pardon?
What model is the bike?
It's the Huntmaster.
Is that a 650?
Yeah.
Oh, right, so that's lovely. It's a lovely condition. Has that been restored, or is that original?
Oh, they like it.
Oh, right. Oh, another one bought one like it. Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you very much. Oh, no, hello, Pete.
And I come back and the commercials are early, which is good. Normally everything's late, so we'll do the commercial vehicles, ladies and gentlemen, all the heavy stuff. And but not with these glasses. I'll just change over. Certainly, I would surmise, and I'll find out when it comes round, that this vehicle was used in farming since then, where cross-country tyres come in very useful. Right, so it's Clyde Patient, a Foden F870. This would have been getting on for the the last of the military Fodens, I would have said. What year is this, Mr. Patience? 74, yeah. Down onto the trailer, yeah. And the winch, of course, would be in service today. It's that good. But I won't ask you how much it cost you to get it here, because, yeah, 5 to the gallon, ladies and gentlemen, 5 to the gallon of diesel. But is it a Jeep? There is a way of telling whether this is a Willys or a Hotchkiss or even a Ford. But after all this time, I should know. But I'll have to ask, which one is it?
This is a 1942 Ford GPW.
Ford GPW. They were built by the 3 companies: the Jeep America, and then Fords and Hotchkiss as well. In fact, they built them up after the war, and a lot of them were built and sent in France and still being used by the fire brigade, etc. Have you got any sort of history of this one at all?
It was in a barn in Illinois. Been in there for many decades. We imported it in 2012, and then it took 5 years for a complete nut and bolt restoration.
I can see it's a complete restoration, and I know somebody else who's got one, and I know they did the same. So I know, you know, just enough essential parts. So somebody said that's what the Jeep stands for. But when you come to strip these down, there's a fair few essential parts.
There's a lot of essential parts. Yeah, the Jeep behind me is actually a Willys Jeep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, lovely. Okay, and now we have a Willys, because he's told me. They all look the same. They were made to the same pattern, obviously, and what a successful vehicle. What a successful vehicle in every theatre of war. I think the Germans on the Air Force said, well, famously, you know, to Chief at Luftwaffe, what would you, and he said, give me a Spitfire, and I think the military people were saying, give me a Jeep, because they just were fantastic vehicles. Go anywhere, see them in every war film going. But look at this one. Talk about everything on it. The machine gun, for a start, we'll talk about. Obviously the rifle on the bonnet. But this is interesting. Just this up the front here. There's a bit of oh, it's an angle iron really, with 2 little slots in it. Now, as far as I remember rightly, if I'm wrong, and you correct me if I'm wrong, there was a good trick of the Germans with a bit of a booby trap to string a wire across at that height, which would aim to sort of decapacitate the driver of the vehicle or anybody sitting in it, and that was a sort of wire cutter. That's what it's for. It just drives straight through it. It was what Captain Mannering would have said, a dirty, rotten Nazi trick. But yes. But seriously, tell me a little bit. Well, tell me about this very impressive machine gun, obviously decommissioned, on the top here.
Okay, right. Well, before I do that, this vehicle's a 1943 Willys MVG. Subtle differences from the GPW. This was delivered in January 1943 and was issued to the United States Marine Corps in the Pacific. This is one of the very few vehicles that made its way back from Japan and found its way in California, and it was imported about 5 years ago as a complete, utter rusty shell, and it's been restored, and as you can see now, it's looking absolutely marvellous. Can I introduce my 2 hitchhikers in the back there? Very pleased, yeah. And it's very good, nice to be here today, and it's nice to have a chance to show these vehicles. It keeps the whole thing alive, so I think. Thank you. Oh, and your question to me, this is a 30 caliber machine gun, standard issue to all US soldiers during World War II, and it's a fine example, and there it is, really. Thank you.
Well, they were used for everything. You could put a stretcher across the back you had the machine gun, you had Jeep for radio vehicles, communications, reconnaissance, every single job they could be converted. And there again, you see that at the front, if the chap was standing up at the back there. But the interesting thing, was a lot very interesting, I've got to get on a bit, but if that was in that field warfare with the Royal Marine, you think of Iwo Jima and all the others, they got just abandoned on the islands. It's lucky to get it back. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. Well, it's a credit for you. Yeah, quiet, we'll all go diving. Yeah, cheers. And then the first of the Land Rovers, which is our, sort of took over, really this is our equivalent, or from the Jeep, went on for a long time, the go-anywhere vehicle. All areas of the forces had these, as well as the fire brigades, and of course farmers, and now no longer. End of story with the Land Rovers. little bit about it's a three. It's just a Series 3. See, I do get terribly mixed up with Series 2 and 3, which I shouldn't, but I do. Full camouflage, obviously. All the gear on the back. That's a great tow bar, push pole. What other? Oh right, I like the flags. Very good, very good. The Ukrainian and the flag of England and the Help for Heroes. That's good. Control Land Rover. That's to say, like I was babbling on about earlier with normal control and forward control. There's no bonnet on this one, no, because the engine's inside. Now this was a rarer one. You do see them, but I'm going to find out a bit more about the history of this one. Again, very often it was either ambulance work or telecommunications, radio truck. I don't know, probably neither of those for this one. You'll have to tell me.
No, this was a REME mobile workshop attached to Rapier missile unit, but it did 20 years service. I've had it since 2002, and just kept it clean and tidy.
Yeah, thank you very much. And now for a champion, an Austin champion, or an Austin champ as we call it. One of my favourite dinky toys, only this is the real thing. This, as you can see from the badge at the front, Rolls-Royce powered, very thirsty machine. You know, built, if you like, as a competitor to the Land Rover, and also they had Austin gypsies as well, but this was a bit different. This was quite a nippy machine, ideal for reconnaissance work, could go just as fast backwards as it could forward. This looks to be like a sort of desert livery, but is it Royal? I think you've got a Royal Air Force top on, but is that my pizza in the back? All right, thanks very much. So, thanks for delivering that. So you now work for Deliveroo. No, seriously, I'm sorry, making jokes. Tell us a little bit about the history of this. I love these.
Well, it's their anniversary this year. They went into service in 1952, so that makes it 70 years since they went into service. This one's 1955. And it probably came out in 1967, so they didn't last very long. They cost too much. You could get about almost 6 Land Rovers to one of these, so the army soon dropped them.
Which is fine, because everything the army did was always over-engineered, and this was a top-class vehicle, there's no doubt about it. But somebody in the Ministry of Defence said, hey, I bet it, as he just said, we can get 5 of them Land Rover things for one of these. But what a vehicle. Do you know anything about its service history?
Only its last bit. It was in the military police in its final days, but earlier than that I don't know.
No, it's all right. Military police had it at one time, the Red Caps as we call them. It's a lovely job. Thank you very much for bringing it. It's ideal for a day like today. An open-top sports car, but you wouldn't want the fuel bill. And another Series 3. Now this one, I haven't got the military, well I have, but I'm going to cheat again and ask the driver if he can tell me a bit about it.
So it's a Defender 110 V8. It was serving over in Germany with the Royal Signals, hence the petrol engine. It then came back to Salisbury and got the hardtop put on it, and then back in 2000 exit service, and that's when I took it over.
Yeah, don't forget we had a massive presence in Germany with the United Nations forces after the war. Again, a petrol, a V8 petrol, I won't ask, it's just 200 fil. Yes, it's not the cost of putting in the tank, it's but the thing I noticed straight away is this is a hard top, and I thought, now how original is that? But it is original, it was fitted over here. There weren't that many hard tops, Salisbury Plain. Thanks for bringing it, all a bit different. Now we're down to we've got a good few lorries coming in now. Brian, you don't mind me rabbiting on, do you? He's having a bit of a well-deserved break because he's been working all morning. We've got a Scammell Highwayman, Rawlins the showman, very famous show family, Rawlins. This is what we call a ballast box highwayman. Now, a lot of them were tractor units, that's to say they were fifth wheel coupling. A lot of them were used with ballast boxes like this to tow, working within dock areas, notably, big railway yards, with trailers with containers from ships or not as we think today, the container. I'm talking about the old-fashioned wooden containers that were craned on and off. But a lot of them went into showman service because you could tow quite legally. Yeah, Scammell Crusader, top end of the range. Again, a Rolls-Royce engine lorry. One just did cars, you know. We had the Leylands and the Cummins, and this is a Rolls-Royce engine Crusader. Top of the range, heavy haulage. capable of pulling loads up to 100 tons, with possibly another one on the back. I don't know who had this originally. Who had it? One from the famous fleet of Pickfords. Pickfords were big Scammell owners. This would be D51. I'm just going to be over the page. Simon Maynard, it says here. Are you Mr. Maynard? He's disappeared. You, Simon. Yeah. What year would this be? 1948. So we're talking about post-war. This, I'm actually older than this. Amazing. AEC owner with a 1959 Mandata, which sadly isn't here today. I think I first saw this. Was it at the High Wheeled Rally? Because it was you. Ollie's driving it, so that's a bit of a clue. There was a firm in Eastbourne that I used to go and nick their old, I used to say, excuse me, can I have some of them, mister? They used to take Commercial Motor magazine. It was J.B. Leach. But this is not J.B., this is J.A. Leach of Thetford. And this is very original. It's a lovely, it's just listening to that AEC, the engine's the same, sounds like, which engine is it? Is it the?
It's got the 9.6 in it.
0.6, whereas mine's 11.5 with being the heavy haulage thing. But it's yours. You lucky devil.
I drove it back 3 months ago. I drove it back from Gloucestershire.
Yeah.
6 hours on the road, 157 miles. And everyone keeps saying that these old lorries are uneconomical. Well, it burnt 10 gallons of diesel to do 157 miles in 6 hours.
That is good. That's better than mine. Yeah, from Gloucester, you drove it all the way back. I missed the first bit. Yeah, you drove it all the way back. And it's just not, I don't know, it's got the names on the front, but it's just seems like just out of service. And that's why I took pictures of it last week, because it's so original. The original platform back, all the loads were sheeted, there's the cleats underneath the sheeted, everything. You had to handball the loads on, there was no, well, you might have been lucky with a forklift, but most of the time it was handballing the loads off, which means literally handling them on, handling them off, no mechanical handling. Then in the dead of night, when you were just about to set off on the trunk, it raining, you had to go on, put 2 sheets over a top sheet, blooming great big tarpaulin, standing up on top, no handrails, somebody chucking the rope over, roping alone, roping and sheeting was an art in its own form. And then when you got in there was no heater, no radio. If it's anything like mine, a bloody great hole in the floor, excuse my language, a large hole in the floor where the pedals and the handbrake comes in. This is what we call this is the Austin's version to the famous Bedford O series. It was their contender.
Well, they got known as the
Birmingham Bedford, really, isn't it?
They got known as the Birmingham Bedford.
That's right.
They were so much like the Bedford O model that somebody somewhere, I think, took a few drawings when they left one company and went to another. And just looking at the registration there, GXA, I'm guessing it possibly was registered originally with the National Fire Service.
It's what? It was a water bowser on airfield, Brian.
Oh right,
yeah.
Just going, it's wartime, we got going by the GXA registration on it.
Yeah.
Very, very nice vehicle.
It is, with the oh, really nice. So I like the sign writing, I really do. It makes it look absolutely authentic with the drop side body. A wooden drop side body, I have to say. You know, you go to drop side. Oh, how long we got? We've got a few minutes. Yes, Camel Mountaineer. My Mouse, I love that. Another ballast box tractor unit. Mountaineer was the vehicle that I used for an awful lot of construction work. Some of them were dumpers. A lot of them were just used for heavy trailer work, taking stuff to construction sites, mainly abroad, places like South Africa, Australia, and the desert work. Of course, we had all that Far East work. This has got a massive chain-driven winch, which is driven from a power takeoff at the back. A really good Garwood winch. It's an American winch, Garwood. They were made in Detroit. That's a really powerful job. Again, the engine in this is...
Sorry? Cummins NAC 250.
Right, so not only has it got American winch, but it's got a American engine as well, yeah. What's the bit?
We believe it's possibly an X-Wings one.
Here converted quite into this lovely little, I see it every time, in this tilt-top Austin as agricultural. Brian, you talk about this one.
None of this was a design that Austin produced, but none of them actually survived. This was based on an Austin Ruby, and it was quite a utility vehicle because you can see it with the canvas tilt as you've got it here now. You could take the canvas tilt off and you had a pickup truck, or you could put seats in the back and you had a passenger carrying vehicle.
Version.
Yes, she's still in AFS colours, complete. And nice to see with the two flashing, not the modern flashing light right on the top, but the two in the little console just above the console just above the windscreen. This was how they would go when they were travelling in convoy with the auxiliary fire service. Some of this model were fitted as hose carriers and all sorts of things like that for getting equipment about.
It's got it's a big box on the back, Brian, says it's a dam liner. Well, of course, the big jobs that these did it was about water. When we had the Cold War, if we'd had the military, we'd had the horrors of, heaven forbid, the nuclear war. The water supplies would have been contaminated, reservoirs would have been contaminated, pipelines would have been cut, and a lot of this was to get essential water to those of us that were left alive. I know it sounds horrible, but it's true. And that's what these AFEs, part of this. The convoys could be as many as 100 vehicles long.
Oh, yeah.
You had Green Goddesses all spaced out across the country, the famous Green Goddess fire engine, pumping water from one to the other. And these vehicles were carrying the dams to hold the water and the pipes to join the way to. No, it's 1949 again. It says here, 1949, I hope that's right, is it? Yes. And originally, as it is, a dropsider for a local haulage company, presumably, or a farming?
Jersey.
Spuds!
Spuds down to the docks, yeah.
That's interesting because it must have had a low mileage.
About 9,000 on it.
No, 1940. I wish. I mean, again, it's a few years newer than I am. I'm not giving it that way, but it is 1949, and it's got a lot less mileage on it than I got. I tell you, I wish I had that. Look at hell. Oh yeah. What? I just love to see it. There's no fancy sign writing, there's no lining, there's nothing. It's as original. This is it. I used to go over to Jersey and see these going down the docks when Jersey had things like Albion buses and old stuff. That goes back a bit too, but this is exactly what they use. They lined up on the docks to get your Jersey absolutely as it should be. It's lovely. I like vehicles like that, original. Thank you very much for bringing it. Geo Cat 3, the heavy haulage Scamel. Now, I've not seen this one before. Have you seen this one, Brian? No.
I haven't. No, the new one to me. I'm
going to have to get up on the steps on this because I really want to know how this, where this comes from and all about it. Because he's opened the door. That's good because I could get up the steps. I have a job getting down on these days. Oh no, he's on the wrong side. Never mind.
Yeah, the driver's over this side.
Can you tell me about it, or shall I go around? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's a 6x6, isn't it? It's, as far as I'm aware, it's a one-off. Yeah, only one ever built. Scamel chassis, Cummins.
Yeah, it is. What later on, the heavy haulage like ALE were using Unipowers. This is a Unipower, but it had a Scamel chassis with a Cummins engine. I don't know because he just told me. Would I be better off going around the other side, or? Yeah, I'll totally go around the other side because I know that I've got to get through these, and there's quite a few, but. Obviously, I'm a bit of a heavy haulage. Thing that my son would have been used to playing with as a lad before he got a full-size one. A barrel, it's called Star. I don't know anything much about it. It's a 3-inch, I would think, is it? 3-inch, and I don't know whether you can tell us a little bit about it, how you came to buy it or make it or what?
I bought it from Berry Brook Steam, Devon, at the beginning of the year. All I really know about it is 3-inch barrel agricultural by the Plasto design.
Right, okay, well that's it's quite a common design, but have you added the crane, or came as a crane engine? Yeah, I always think that's nice, the crane engine. If I had one, I'd like a crane engine, but there we are. Oh, there's more of them. I can't remember the comedian who used to say that. Was that Jasper Carrot, I think? Oh yeah, you're all too young to know. Paul Rambridge, I think, the 4-inch barrel agricultural, 4-inch scale. Orion. I won't go on about the agricultural because we all know what I've already said, what agricultural engines were designed to do, and that's hauling B18, which he hasn't. That's a 4.5-inch that he's pulling. You haven't quite got the steam pressure, or is he just doing it as a heavy haulage? Oh, he has got the. What you're doing is a heavy haulage demonstration. Fantastic. He's got a full-size generator on the back and another engine as a pusher, B12. Now they're 4-inch Foster. These weren't generally used as heavy haulage, but here we have our very own miniature steam engine heavy haulage demonstration. That'll be one for Peter to take a picture of. Very good indeed. This is what you normally see the big boys doing in the playpen at Dorchester, and doubtless we shall see a bit of that later on today, but it's fine to see these engines hooked up with a full-size generator, load of filled barrels on the back, everything on. They're pulling quite a bit, but actually they're probably making quite light work of it because they're very powerful. The power to weight ratio of these little engines is quite something to behold. You'll see them going.
Others as well, Rundles, they do models, and of course you have the big 2 sales that take place in the southwest there each year, and there's lots of potential for you to join the preservation movement no matter what age you are with a model traction engine that you've got here. We've got barrels with 3 shafts, we've got Fosters with 4-inch scale 4 shafts, and then you've got things like the double B design McLarens. So we've got just a few here today. We've got the Showman's engine, the crane engine that they're here, and then we've got the third one in on the right. Of course, that is a half-size barrel which was drawn up, made in Kent. We have featured it in Old Glory magazine last year. It was the top engine at the Woodchurch Rally last August. Woodchurch is a really good event also. They've got over 75 miniatures entered for that rally on the 7th and 8th of August. Yeah, very good, Dave. Excellent display.
Thank you very much, Peter, as ever, a font of knowledge. I've got to get the engines out of the arena now because I've regained my breath very quickly because we're going to have the main steam parade of the day coming on after these lovely miniatures. Thank you, gentlemen, mostly gentlemen. There's ladies there as well, of course. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for bringing these engines in and showing them off to us today. And we'll ask you now to leave the arena, please. Always at the end of the full-size display, we have the whistles going, and I'm pleased to say we've got that today. Great. Thank you, Graham. I think you've headed up this lot. He came in first. Lovely. He's got a full-size engine. He's got to go back and get on his big engine now.
Okay.
Well, his son's going to bring that in, I think.
He's a busy man today
because he's already water vapour. No more than comes out of your kettle at home. So it's ecologically very sound, except that, of course, it runs on a fossil fuel derivative. But I'm afraid to say, so do the electric cars at the moment, because unless you can guarantee that the whole of the grid's being run on wind power, then I'm afraid your electric cars are being charged up with electricity generated by gas or oil or even coal, dare I say it. So anyway, the Sony Steve, as you can see, equally good going backwards and forwards, but a rich man's car. There's no doubt about it. These cost a good few $1,000s, and it was only the Americans with the money that could afford a steam car of this quality. Now, Martin built another one. He built from scratch his own design. Well, it was based on an American design. Polly. There's a lovely history with Polly. Well, you can tell us who owned Polly. I know, but you can tell us who owned Polly.
It was owned by a company in Norfolk, and they had 5 of these engines, older sisters, and 2 of the others survived, and they're in the structural museum over in Norfolk. They're still there.
Village to me, it was in Cranley, and it came several occasions to the early Brunswick rallies.
Now, the next one is called Will o' the Wisp. It's a Tasker's Little Giant, which we saw a little one in the 4-inch scale model earlier on. Taskers of Andover. If you want to go and see them, what it was like then, go to the Basingstoke Museum, where they've got a wonderful display of their old their workshops, what it was like to work for. But this one's got an interesting history. It was a popular engine, what we call a light road loco. It was designed to be driven and steered by one person, and under 5 tons. Unladen weight of that was just under 5 tons, and that was the law that came in 1904, I think, where you could actually drive and steer an engine, and of course you cut your staff costs by 50% doing that. So a lot of people went in for making them. This is the Tasker's version, but notice those tanks alongside. They're what we call pannier tanks. You normally get either tender tanks or belly tanks or whatever. These are the only one I've seen with pannier tanks alongside. This was the extra water store that was needed for the longer runs. But interesting, it's got what appears to be like a Fortin tractor cab on it. Parents were the road users that had this. Got an idea, it came out of the Lillywhite collection. I should know because I was there when we took the stuff out. But parents were the road tractors that had this. It uses the same Wallace and Stevens. It was built Wallace and Stevens, uses the same advanced name as the rollers, which you'll see the roller that's coming along behind it, which is the 6 to 8 ton version of the always were over-engineered, always had extra things. There's a sprung tow bar behind and attachments. You could have a scarifier to rip the road surface up. Quite a few extras on that machine. And the one going round behind it, owned by Stuart Gaines.
They're very appropriate to label called the Wallace and Stevens advanced, because they were very, very advanced for their time. You notice all the others we've had round, you've got a chain on either side of the front axle, and that's your steering. But the Wallace and Stevens Advanced has a worm gear and a quadrant. Much more positive steering. Another feature of the Advance too, they found when they started to use tarmacadam on the road surfaces, when they went out and rolled in one direction and they reversed, the rollers actually came to a stop and could put a little dent in the tarmac.
A very fine example of that particular type of road roller. Quite a few adepts on. Let's move on a bit because we've got. You can see how well that furrow is looked after, because look how slow it's going. Not very easy to get an engine to turn over that slow and keep moving. He's practicing for the slow race.
He's practicing for the slow race, yeah. Of course, he didn't drive when they did the contracting work. They didn't always drive the roller all over the country. They went on the railway. They'd be taken to the local station, they'd be put on like a low load of railway truck and mashed down, and they went by train to wherever they were going. They were going to Birmingham or somewhere there, and then when it got there it was unloaded and used on the road, so you didn't have to drive it from here to there.
It's a very famous engine, as far as I'm concerned, going in front of me now, Lord Roberts, which is a wonderful Fowler B5 road locomotive, heavy locomotive, built in 1900, back in Sussex again. I like the sign writing on the canopy, Market Lavington Brick and Tile Works, because it would have taken several loads of bricks to from the tile works to the station with tillers behind, with breaking the soil up. Very powerful engines, a unique design for which John Fowler was awarded a knighthood. Can't say too much more about it really. There's so much more to talk about these engines. It's just trying to tell you what they did, because they all did different jobs. They weren't just steamrollers, believe you me. And now this one is it's one of the oldest engines on the field, dates from 1890, and I'm going to have a word with the owner of this. I said I warned him earlier on, Mr. Gerald Whittaker, who owns this rather low, I keep on saying rather lovely because I love them all really, but it belonged to Carter Brothers of Billingshurst, so we're talking about an engine that worked very much in the area on the ground that we're now standing. Carter Brothers of Billingshurst had this engine in 1890. It's a Wallace and Stevens, and it's not a Phillips Showman, but somebody's got on this thing Showman, so I think they got that wrong. I think that's a bit of an insult. Anyway, yeah, I spoke to you this morning because I came up to mine. It's going to be one of the oldest, certainly best looked after. It's a beautifully looked after engine. I'm not saying the others are, I'm just saying it's a fine example, and it's got a lot of original stuff on it that intrigued me, and I wanted to be kind enough to say a few words about your engine. 1, 2.
Right, this is the 1890 so it's got an unusual factor that it's the first matching roller built by Royce's. So it's got a funny headstock on it. It's what they call Fletcher design. Mr. Fletcher sort of worked between all the major steam companies over a number of years.
Painted in white on the chimney, the letter K, but all the whole fleet of the vehicle, fleet of engines, had that K on the chimney.
And here comes Ollie again, steering. Well, actually the owner, Jonathan Barton, I'm pleased to say, is actually steering, because Jonathan, like me, has a bit of trouble walking sometimes. I think I'll put it like that. It's not because he's not sober, although that may well be the case. But now in the ring, I can assure you he's perfectly sober, and he's driving his engine. Now, this engine, I did an interview with him back in 2020, but COVID came in and people have held it over. It's now coming out of the next issue of Old Glory, and it's a full time because he has owned this engine for 40 years. It's A31, a DMC 12-ton roller, built rather late in the life of engines, really, 1936, is almost new. Now the DMC 12-ton, owned by Jonathan Barton, always looking in tip-top condition. And then we've got steam tractors line.
Yes, the Lawrence small tractor. Very long chimney at the back. When I first saw this engine on the rally field, it actually had a canopy on it. But I must admit, it looks a lot better without it. Was used apparently a little bit in solar use, but not very much. It was mainly used on forestry work. The name originally was Lion Lord of the Forest.
Been in the family, for the same family, well it was out of that and then brought back into the same family. That wasn't it? It was lovely. It was. And we've got a Sentinel with both cab doors open now, I tell you. Being in that Sentinel on a day like today can't be fun. I know the driver quite well. He's driving on behalf of the Gorgeous Trust. It's a Sentinel timber wagon. I'll talk quickly about it. The boiler is not sticking out the front, or what we call a locomotion boiler. It's a vertical boiler, and it's producing steam under pressure at about 250 pounds per square inch at this very moment. And you're sitting next to it. We laughingly called it the death kettle. Well, that's really a bit rude, but you're sitting next to it. You do not want that steam pipe to burst, I tell you, but they didn't. They were very reliable, and they were fast. You could get up to 30 used for. So it's a timber tractor used in the forest, and also to haul then with its high-powered engine and pneumatic tyres to take the logs on the log haul trailer to the source. Okay, it looks like an Aveling Barford.
Aveling Barford, road roller. There. Aveling, of course, was built down at Rochester in Kent. Thomas Aveling. They built more rollers than anybody else, or they made all sorts of engines, and very sadly at the end they started to get into financial difficulties, and in fact he actually died a pauper in the end, Thomas Aveling, but the company was taken over by Barfords up in Lincolnshire, and they became Aveling Barford, and they produced these rollers, basically an Aveling design, but they changed the back end that you got on and off the engine rather like you do the Wallace and Stevens advance. You didn't climb up over the side.
Yeah, next round is Abeling and Porter. I've got it down here as a showman's conversion. Yes, it's like Trigger's Broom. It's had 3 new heads and 3 new handles. I'll come back to that in a second, but it's owned by the Jessit Trust. Has recently completed under its own steam the trip from Hadlow Down in East Sussex to Crystal Palace in London, back down to Brighton Seafront, and then back to Hadlow Down, all under its own power. Again, it's featuring this month in Old Glory. It's one of the oldest engines in the Jessit Engine Trust. It was, in its first set, a light tractor, a G&D Abeling and Porter tractor for light haulage. It was converted because we talked about Mistress being, he said, a tractor roller with the headstock. It was built as a converter, but it was meant to be able to use it. It's like having a car that had a top you can make into a sports car, if you like, a convertible. So you could convert the tractor by putting rollers on it into a steamroller. It then passed to Essex County Council, and because it was a steamroller and quite a nippy engine, in fact that's the nickname it had, a 2-speed engine, it stayed with them way up into the 1960s and was bought by Claude Jessit and converted by him and his mate into a showman's engine all those years ago, 50, 60 years ago, because he had juvenile rides and fairground organs, and he started the famous Tinker's Park Steam Rally. So it's been longer as a showman's engine than it's been in its other 2 guises, and we still use it today for generating power for lighting and small rides. I'll go over to you again for this wonderful plane. I don't know where we are.
You want me to one in a minute? Following the next showman's round is a garage. It's Olive, name was Olive. And if you look at the smoke box, it's a rather funny shape compared with all the others. Now, railway locomotives run on what they call superheat steam, and they run very efficiently. So Richard Garrett thought, well, if they do it on railway locomotives, why can't we do it on road-going engines? And they tried this. It had tubes inside it and everything. Tried to use superheated steam, and it didn't work. So rather than completely change the front end, they left it as it is, took the tubes out, and it's always stayed like that as a normal engine.
Coral crane engine just gone past, owned by the Searle family. 1920s, was owned by Hickeys of Richmond. What we talked about, this heavy engineering work, that's what they did, and we talked about it with the miniatures. The crane on the front was literally built to take the castings or the giant pieces of equipment that they were making in the foundry, put them onto their road haulage trailers, which at that time were solid tired steel wheeled trailers, using the crane to put them on and then hitching it up to the load, taking them along the road to the destination of the factory or plant where the piece of equipment was going to be made. Or it could be a ship, it could be a ship's propeller or ship's rudder or something like that in the shipyard area. It's got a sparkler restaurant because if you were going through town, you didn't want to have big sparks, you could be fined for that if you said somebody's watching a light or whatever. That was His Majesty 1920, and then we've lost them. They keep on going through so quickly.
Following His Majesty, we've got Boa de Sea, McLaren, again owned by the Searle family up at Horsham. Very, very big, powerful haulage engine. And I'll quickly jump to the other crane engine that's coming up at the rear there with Wilkinson's Machinery Merchants on the back. And if you take out the little half-sized engine showman's that's gone down there, those 3 engines going along, they took a 100-ton load on the road from Crystal Palace down to Brighton Seafront on the historic commercial vehicle London to Brighton run this year in May. Absolute brilliant sight. They left Crystal Palace at 1 o'clock in the morning, Sunday morning. They arrived down on the coast at Brighton at about 1 o'clock, I think it was, or 12 o'clock. Absolute brilliant journey. And not only did they just do that, they took it all the way back to Horsham again afterwards.
You were there commentating.
And I was, along with Brian Johnson, we were at Brighton to watch it come in.
with Brian Johnson, who was with us earlier, and I was going to come up on top of the bus and upset you by saying, hello, I'm here. I was too busy down the other end. But what a sight that was, you're quite right, seeing that on the road. Oh, Princess Marina's gone past, well, we've been talking about that, and so much to tell you here, it's amazing. We've got a wonderful section. Built in 1920 by Bowles and Bedford, Princess Marina is in its current form as a showman's engine with the full end canopy and the generator on the front. It has been in a guise as a heavy haulage engine, which it was at one time in its life. It's another engine from the Cell family collection at Horsham. Yeah, well, that's all we've got time to say about it. There's so much to say about these engines.
Then we've got the Foden steam bus. This was built by Fodens up in Cheshire and Sandbank, and an engine like this, not this particular one, but an engine of this design, they had for like a lot of these big companies, they had a brass band. The famous Foden brass band would have been carried around and their instruments in a steam bus like this one.
I'm going to try and stop this engine going round in front of me at the moment. Hang on, look, because I want to just talk to the driver about it. Try and get round in front. It's a Marshall, of course, a sprung-mounted Marshall, but the thing I want to talk about, it was owned by the local firm at Bodle Street, which is familiar with Peter Love, who's in the ring at the moment. And it was due to, well, I don't know what it was due to. Chris Lambert had it in his fleet. It's got a trailer behind with carters and Billingshurst, what we call a traction trailer. Gerald Whittaker's tractor is one of Gerald Whittaker's engines, but I know about this engine quite a bit. But you know a bit about it as well, and I'd like you to tell us, say my voice, and the authentic voice of the current owner.
So this engine is quite special, really. It's ended up in a garage called Manor Road.
The engine that's in front of that, there in the middle of the arena, vertical boiler, and an on-the-floor engine. It's made them a little bit different. Okay, so I've got a fair turn of speed.
Right, I've just had to hand it to me, found on the ground. It's a whistle of some sort. I won't blow it because I don't know whose lips have been round it, but well, fine. Lydia is going in front of me. Lovely Lydia. It's an Avelinger Porter, the product of the famous factories of Rochester in Kent. You see more of them everywhere. Why? Because they were the most prolific builders. If you look in the traction engine register, pages and pages of Avelinger Porter, and quite right too, they exported all over the world. But their most famous products, they were the first ever to produce a steam road rolling machine, quite different from what we see today. This is an RC10 model, if you're interested, built in 1902 and owned and exhibited by Carl Wolford. Now, we saw Graham Chapper coming. You could talk about this one, if you don't mind.
Well, this is Darren driving this, but his dad's been in with the car. He's been in with the miniature, and now he's left Darren to bring the big one in. This is Omon, Marshall roller. I've had this one in the family quite a number of years now. 2004 they purchased this, and she's been off the rally scene for a little while, but nice to see her back again now. Spent most of its working life, I believe, up in Scotland, where it was used on road rolling contract work up there. And if you notice on the front, just behind the front roller onto the smoke box, on either side there's a couple of hooks, and apparently where this used to work, they worked in a very hilly area. Now a roller with smooth wheels going up and down a hill is not good news. It doesn't work very well, it tends to slide. So what they used to do is to position another engine at the top of the hill, and they would run either chains or steel cables down and hook them onto those hooks, because you can't put it around the headstock. They'd put them onto those hooks, and that would help bring the engine up the hill.
Alright, a bold tractor. gold medal tractor. Gold medal was awarded by the RAC because, as I said earlier on, I think since 1904 the rules were changed to allow engines under 5 tons to run with one person on the footplate. So you didn't have a driver and a steers person, you just had the one person. You cut your start costs in half, and they were very nippy little heavy haulage engines. Well, I'm glad they did make it after all. Good, that's good to see them. Talk about that in a minute. Lovely. I heard they were outside the beer tent, so they did get here. Lovely. Anyway, I'll come back to that in a second. Harry was one of the gold medal winners. They held a competition right around the country to see which of the engines in that class were the best at reliability, at coal consumption, ease of driving, that sort of thing. They had other classes. There were the classes for early petrol lorries as well in that same round the Britain rally, but it was Burrells who came out tops with that little 3-ton tractor. Well, the other ones would have, Wallace and Stevens did well. They all did well, but Burrells came out top and were awarded the gold medal. And so the class of tractor thereafter produced was called the gold medal tractor. And there's quite a few still preserved because they're very they were very reliable machines. And this one particularly is good. Jimmer Marsh is a superb steam engineer, and that runs like a sewing machine. But last and by no means least, just gone in, is my son's engine, which is owned by Adrian Vaughan and Jeff Bowen, who's come all the way down from Cumbria, and they made a bit of a late start yesterday. They come down on the road, which a lot of these engines have, but that engine does tops flat out 4 miles an hour. So it's taken a fair long time to get down from East Sussex, near Hadlow down to here. And they very sensibly made an overnight stop rather than push on in heavy traffic. It was built in 1930. It's a 6-ton Wallace and Stevens Advance, and it's good to see them here. And he's towing, because they've not long been here. I think they just turned up and got themselves a quick cold drink and came up here. And they'll be here all weekend. He's towing his own living van, which he built to a traditional design. He had to build one for a customer, and so he built it to his order, but he had a kit of parts there that he made up at the same time and made one for himself. If you want to buy one of those, you're looking probably in the region of £20,000, but you will be able to buy one because he can still make you one. A superb, I must say, I've watched him build it, a really lovely custom built living van to a traditional design. But that's probably the last of them, I think. I don't think we've got any more. But what a collection. I haven't got all of the 42 in here, but we've pretty well got all of them, I think, Barry.
Well, there's one of them actually out there giving rides.
Yeah, well, that's Gunner, yeah.
Yes, Gunner. Was owned by Jimmer Marsh, and then he sold it and bought a Foden lorry instead.
Yeah, I think it was a real tug, a wrench when he sold that.
Yes, that was one of the lovely engines he did up. And that's towing a trailer, but if you're fed up with walking round the site, you could go along and give a donation. You can go on that trailer and you can go for a ride around the site behind it. So they're starting and stopping from over where the blood runners are served, just at the side of the arena here, and you can go and get on the trailer and go for a trundle around the site.
Right, well, we've got them all in, we've got to get them all out, but we've got, what's the time? It's 2:45, so we've done all right for time, but we've got so many in, I don't know whether we've got time for the steering engine or whether we've got time for the games. What do you think? Steering engine, right, O'Brien, that's good. So, we may get time for some games afterwards, so if you want to stay in for a slalom race or a slow race, stay in the arena, just stay at one end, just keep your pressure low and grab yourself a soft drink from somewhere. But the other thing we're going to do is steer a steamer. Now, I did say to one of the organisers today that I need a volunteer from the charity, the Blood Runners, to be here with a collecting box while I help the people on and off the engines. It means that you've got a chance to steer the engines, so I just hope they've organised that. I'm going to make a quick phone call now so you'll be pleased to hear that I should be offline. And I expect Barry will fill in. Is she there? Right, oh, Brian's going to do us the honours. Now listen to that little Advance going past. It's a twin cylinder, it's a duplex compound. Now that'll take me a fair time to describe, but chuff, 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 chuff. You can hear it, 4 cylinders going beautifully slowly. They've had a nice run down, they've taken it easy, I understand, and they had an overnight stop, as I say, in order to stop bunging up the rush hour traffic. They stopped overnight somewhere, and they set off this morning, having reset the fire. It's a lot of the engines have come on the road, but with the distance and the speed this does, it's quite a feat, really. It had the furthest it's been this year was in actual fact up to Loughborough, but that time we did take it on a low loader. Normally it always goes everywhere under its own power. Actually, my son Adrian's just returned only a couple of weeks ago from taking another of the Trust engines to France under its own steam from Hadlow down. Obviously not in steam on the New Haven ferry. I think they'd have had something to say about that. They took the fire out, obviously, before it got to the ferry terminal, push-poled it on with a tractor, and then pulled it off at the other end, and it went to a race course near a place called Gournay-en-Bray, which is the twin town with Hailsham. We did an experiment just before lockdown. We were going to take 5 engines over there in 2020, but something happened in 2020 called COVID. But Adrian just took the Tinker over there. This is going to be loud. You can sound your whistles off now, ladies and gentlemen. Normally they do it all together where you can't hear yourself speak. I think they're doing it individually. I've never heard that before. It's normally one cacophony of whistles which you can hear halfway across West Sussex and part of East Sussex as well, I should think. Anyway, maybe they'll do that later. But any engines that are wanting to take part in Steer a Steamer, you stay in the ring, and other engines can now leave the ring, and we're going to have Steer a Steamer, which means that you, the general public, can actually do that. You can come into the ring and steer a steam engine round the ring under the jurisdiction of the under the direction of the driver of the engine, who usually is the owner of the engine. You won't burn yourself on a hot pipe or anything else. The other thing is getting on and off the engines. They weren't designed, sadly, for people like me who are fairly disabled these days. They're quite tricky to get on and off. He who whistles last whistles last. So they're tricky to get on and off, but we'll give you a hand on and off if you like. And thirdly, they're quite new. They're burning coal and you've got oil. So yes, you will probably get dirty if you're touching the engines and you've got some nice weekend clothes on that you don't want to get early dirty. Don't send us a cleaning bill. You're bound to get dirty hands at least, and probably some dirt, some sort of oily smuts or something on your clothes. So other than that, please come and have a go. It's a very popular event, every rally I do, particularly